Hello, this is Mrs. Brown from Research Triangle High School. The purpose of this short presentation is to give you a little bit of an overview of the story of Persepolis, which is a graphic novel and also an Academy Award-winning film. Persepolis is not just a graphic novel, it's an autobiographical novel. It's actually the story of this young girl who's growing up in Iran at the time of the Islamic Revolution in the 70s. And we see everything through the eyes of our protagonist, Marjan, that's how that's pronounced. And we see a lot of the people's hopes kind of dashed. They were hoping for change with overthrowing the Shah, and instead they set up this very fundamentalist religious regime that took power and forced a lot of restrictions on people and really changed their lives. Our 6-year-old hero, though, at the time is sort of clever and fearless. She manages to outsmart people, and she discovers some things from the Western world, including a love of punk music. She has some serious family issues, though, with the war. She has an uncle who's executed. There's bombs falling all around her family. And this idea of being this young child who's also living in this war condition is part of the tension that's set up in the novel. Now, the novel is told in graphic form, which means that you have photos and captions. So it's a little bit like reading a comic book, and you read it from left to right and from top to bottom. And you can see here this showing the revolutionaries, and then the change one day when she's in school and suddenly has to wear this veil all day long. And how they're just little girls. They don't understand. They're on the playground. The veil is hot. It's in the way. They're throwing it off. And the whole story is told through this combination of pictures. So as you read, you're not only getting the text and the dialogue, but you also have these visual images and things. So it's kind of a different experience. I think you're going to enjoy it. The novel explores a lot of social issues, including the rights of women and the universal rights of all human beings. And one of the things that are points that she makes throughout is that when you have women here who are so oppressed and they're spending their whole time worrying about, are they going to be in trouble because this little wisp of hair is showing? Are they going to be in trouble because their pants aren't quite long enough? Are they going to be in trouble because their veil isn't put on just right? That they don't have any time to ask things like, what happened to my freedom? Why can't I say what I think anymore? Why don't I have these options? And this idea that if you make people so afraid all the time, they don't have time to question, which means that they don't have time to think about changing the government. Now, this girl is raised by some really amazing parents who you'll meet in the book, but she has this outspoken nature, and she's a bit of a rebel herself, and her parents become quite worried that her outspokenness and some of their family history is going to make her get in trouble and really even have her life at threat, or her life be threatened. So when she's just 14 years old, they decide to send her away to safety, and she gets sent off to Vienna, off to Austria. And here she is, if you imagine about your age, getting sent away from everything that you know, all your family, all your friends, and going to some sort of a boarding school. And Persepolis Part 2 is going to pick up on some of that idea. And a lot of this is about the change that she sees in her country, but also in herself. Now, we're going to be stopping our story at Persepolis Part 1, but Persepolis Part 2 continues with Marjan's search. And even though she has these difficulties and she understands the fundamentalist society that she's returning to, eventually she does indeed decide to go back to Iran and be back with her family. And during this really difficult time, she tries to speak out against the problems that she sees, to change the system from within. And then finally, at about 24 years old, she realizes that even though she has this deep family identification with Iran and with her country and this love of her homeland, she can't live in Iran under these conditions. And she decides to leave her homeland, set up living in France, and look forward to the future, where indeed we see her as a very successful author and artist writing the story of her life. And that is the story of Persepolis.